Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this week's edition of Carry On. Carry On is brought to you by Nation's Finest, where our mission is to support America's military veterans and their families with a comprehensive approach to housing, health, and employment that helps them to achieve self-sufficiency and reach their full potential. If you or a veteran you know needs help, or if you'd like to make a donation, please visit nationsfinest.org or call 833-468-9676. Again, that's 833-468-9676. I'm your host, Mark Miller, Army veteran and Communications Director for Nation's Finest. In today's episode, our guest, Greg Washington, is going to talk with us about healing and recuperating from PTSD, sharing some success stories he's seen along the way. Greg Washington is a combat veteran, influencer, motivator, innovator, strategic leader, and a family man. Greg obtained a Bachelor of Science in Engineering and Management with a concentration in mechanical engineering from the United States Military Academy at West Point, where he was also a football team captain. He also earned an Executive Master of Business Administration at Tulane University with a concentration in finance. Greg served 7 years on active duty and deployed out of Germany to Afghanistan and Iraq in support of Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. His exceptional leadership skills in hostile situations were recognized by his leaders as he was awarded the Joint Service Commendation Medal. Greg co-founded and continues to serve as CEO of TFP Financial Services, where he provides corporate and individual tax services and consulting. In 2019, he launched a nonprofit called House of Man. Greg now leverages personal experience and a passion for healing by leading a team of mental health influencers who address the uncharted landscapes of grief and PTSD. His upcoming project, Guards Down, will provide retreat-style training for mental health professionals, culturally sensitive interventions, and alternative healing spaces. Greg was also selected for the Bunker Labs 2020 Dallas-Fort Worth Veterans and Residents Cohort. Mr. Greg Washington, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Mark, I appreciate you having me on. It's so good to be here.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time. And for our audience, let's talk about what taking the time means for you today, Greg. So Greg is currently embarked on this project called Walk to Honor. He's walking 1,800 miles across 11 states. So that's all I'm going to say on that. Greg, can you give us a little bit of an update?
Yeah. Mark, I'm walking 1,800 miles, 11 states, and we're stopping in 25 cities. I started this walk to end veteran suicide. And so we are raising awareness of the increased suicide rate amongst our veterans and our youth. So we started in Mount Bayou, Mississippi, where my family side is from, and we just made it to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and we're heading on up to West Point, New York, to the military academy where I graduated from. And so the Walk to Honor, I see you come in and come out. Come on back in.
I thought you had some more to say there, so I was going to give you the stage back there.
I can. I'm with me. I'm an open book with it. I don't know, because you said it's 15 to 20 minutes. So you tell me how.
No worries on the time. I'm just curious. Let's talk a little bit more about the walk. So how long have you been out so far? Time wise. What kind of folks have you met? Any great stories along the way so far?
Yeah. So I started my birthday weekend, May 2nd. So April 29th is when we started in Mount Bayou, Mississippi. And we've made it to Fayetteville, North Carolina. We're a little over 1,000 miles in. And so we're headed up to West Point, New York. I started this walk because if you didn't know, there have been more veterans to die by suicide from 2007 to now than those that were killed in Vietnam. And for our youth, suicide is the second leading cause of death between the ages of 9 and 18. And so I was almost one of those 22 that died day by suicide. And I thought if my transition out the military was this hard, I can only imagine what it was like for other soldiers and service members that don't have the tribe nor the resources to connect to get help. And so we started this nonprofit, and we kicked it off this year because I ended up watching a really close friend of mine, associate, take his last breath on Facebook Live. And so I told my team, we have to do something. I have to go now. You guys got to catch up. And so I started walking, and it first started out with just me and my dad. And once, we got the news, it's kind of been one of those things where you walk by faith and not by sight. And so we've been walking, and the bridge is literally being built as we are moving from state to state. We were able to get a RV donated to us. When my mentor found out that we were fighting a tornado at one point in the beginning of our walk. And so I got to thank Lazy Days RV for believing in us and helping us with this mission of being able to spread this national suicide prevention campaign. And so what we're doing is every city that we're stopping in, we're hosting these mental health rallies that are connecting local and state resources, or connecting communities to local and state resources when it comes to getting help.
That's such an honorable mission, and it's very brave of you to share your own story. And I'm so glad that you're still with us. And my deepest condolences to your friend and colleague who did not have the same outcome. So much respect for what you're doing. As you're on this journey, and going through this, and also with the other work you do, we've talked on this program before about what post-traumatic stress disorder looks like and what sufferers can experience. We've also talked about identifying the signs, both in yourself or in others. And I know you do a lot of work sharing resources and stories of those who have healed from PTSD or are in that healing process. What would you say are the most valuable resources to help veterans on that path to healing, to do something to curb that 22 that we talk about?
Yeah, Mark, that's a great question. It's twofold, right? One is having that self-awareness of being able to do that mental check-in with yourself to understand and know where you're at. A lot of people suffer in silence, just like I did. I figured that, I could handle it. I'm good. I can handle it, until you can't. And then at that point of not being able to handle it, you realize that you don't have a plan. So one of the challenges that I challenge people along this walk is, okay, well, create a plan. Who are your 3 good friends, 3 battle buddies that you can call on in your time of need that can walk you off the ledge, that can talk you off the ledge, excuse me. Who's your mental health provider? Do you have the number for them that you can call and make appointments, at the drop of a dime? And at the very least, do you know the suicide prevention hotline, the crisis line? So the military teaches us how to handle things at the lowest level. And battle buddy teams, especially in the Army, are our lowest levels. And so one of the other challenges that I do is I tell people to check in. And this is the Walk to Honor challenge. Think of that one friend, family member, battle buddy that you hadn't talked to in a while, or that that might be going through something, and just call and check in on them. The same way that my cousin called me, my baby cousin called me in my darkest moment, that one phone call could just save a life. And so that's the challenge, being able to check in, being able to show up, not just say that I care, but actually taking those small steps to show that you care. And when you ask someone, hey, how are you doing? It's being able to listen. And so, that's been the biggest part of this along the way. And just understanding that people grieve differently and process things differently, but more so just from an internal standpoint, being able to give yourself a little grace and mercy to understand that you're human. And if you give yourself time to grow through your situation, you might just find what you need on the other side.
I think that's all very solid advice. I mean, the big three: having a battle buddy, knowing the hotline number in case of emergency, having a mental health provider for one, and then knowing their number for two. Those are three great ones, but I think you hit on the big one, like you said, is having those battle buddies and getting each other through at the lowest level. I think you're absolutely right there. I agree with you, so much so that I'll say to all of our viewers, let's take that challenge. Let's all of us veterans out there, myself included, I'll do it too. Let's all call that one battle buddy we haven't talked to in a while and reach out. Let's all pick one and reach out, because maybe that one is the one who needs our phone call. And maybe we need to talk to our friends too, because that's healthy for us as well, to catch up with old friends. And to our viewers, Greg and I hadn't met each other before this call, except we probably walked by each other at some point in our careers in the military. But just that friendly, being able to talk with someone who's been through similar experiences in the military, been to similar places. There's a comfort and enjoyment in that. So that all of our viewers know, Greg and I were laughing and joking before this interview, and that I think that's healthy for all of us. So,
Indeed.
changing gears a little bit here, later this month, so to be specific, July 25th, is National Hire a Veteran Day. And certainly some healing stories just don't end with employment, but a lot do. So for those healing from PTSD and those on the path to healing, what advice would you give them about employment, whether it's, what employment to be seeking or how to stay competitive? What would be your advice in the job market for those suffering from and healing from PTSD?
Yeah. So when you talk about PTSD, when it goes untreated, right, that's when you have to think about those increased risk factors to suicide. And so the top three risk factors for suicide are isolation, toxic relationships, and financial stress. And so you hit the nail on the head when it comes to, finding a job and getting hired. The biggest thing that I believe strongly is that the civilian world doesn't necessarily translate your MOS properly, over to the civilian side. So being able to clean up your resume and make it in such a way that it makes sense to the civilian population when it goes to get hired, I strongly recommend taking the time to lay out your resume and really tell your story about your military career, what you've been through and what you've done. And I know the military, the transition, out, I know they help soldiers a lot with doing that, but definitely taking the time to freshen up your resume. The other thing that I would say is you should constantly be learning to better yourself. So picking up a new trade or going back to school, because what I'm seeing is that technology, the world, the industries are ever evolving. And so being able to stay up with the times in the trade. And so even though I have, advanced degrees, I'm still going back to school to learn new crafts so that I can stay competitive in the workplace. And so I encourage people to, as you're going through, to learn a craft that fits you. Because if you're doing something that you love, if you're doing something you enjoy, I strongly believe you don't work a day in your life, doing the work that you do. And so not to just look at it as I'm just doing this to put food on the table, but to come up with a game plan so that you can increase your well-being, as a whole, when it comes to financial, mental, emotional, spiritual wellness. And so being able to always take that time to advance and learn yourself.
Great points once again, Greg, and especially doing something you believe in. Most people in the military get used to that feeling of serving a calling higher than yourself, and then we realize when we leave, hey, if I'm gonna put in hard work, that's still got to be for a calling greater than myself, something I really believe in. So, great points there, Greg. As we wind down here to close out, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience of fellow veterans or their loved ones?
Yeah, the biggest thing, I always go back to, why I'm doing this walk. I strongly believe a person dies twice, once in the physical form and the last time their name is spoken. And so if you are dealing with trauma, with grief, with PTSD, depression, thoughts of suicide, first and foremost, understand that suicide is not the way. It never is. It never will be. And that it's okay to reach out and say, hey, I need help. Being able to find a way to incorporate your grief into your everyday life so that it's manageable is basically where we're at. I'll tell you a short story. I was walking today, and finishing up this walk, I came across a family that just lost a relative to suicide. And I was sitting there talking with the brother, and I really didn't have any words that you could lean on, that would just say, hey, this is going to get you through. But one of the things that I remembered, and one of the things that's been laying on my heart for the longest, is that it's a new day. It may not be the day that you want it to be or that you expected, but it's still a new day. And you have a new opportunity to show someone you care, to connect with someone new, to better yourself. And so being able to take advantage of that new day and make it worthwhile for you and for the people around you, I think that makes all the difference. And so I will say, this last quote that I live by, especially on this walk, and I'll paraphrase: I shall pass this way but once. Any good that I can do, let me do it now, for I may not pass this way again. And so being able to show that act of love or that act of kindness to those around you, man, I think that's powerful, especially in this day and time with everything that we have going on with the pandemic, the war, politics. Being able to show that we're still human and that there are good people out there that still care goes a long way.
Greg, great insights there. Never any shame in needing to ask for help and doing the good we can along the way. Wonderful final thoughts. Mr. Greg Washington, I want to say thank you for taking time out of your long journey, taking time to join us and our audience here today. And also thank you for your service, for your time in the military, and thank you for your continued service and caring for our fellow veterans. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Greg.
I appreciate it, Mark.
All right. Thank you. We'll see you soon. And a big thank you to all of you who joined us today. We'll be back discussing issues next week that are relevant to veterans and those who care about them. And again, if you or a veteran you know needs help, or if you'd like to make a donation, please visit nationsfinest.org or call 833-468-9676. Again, that's 833-468-9676. Thank you again for joining us today, and as always, carry on.